And welcome back. We are going to look at another variation of parallax effect here today, specifically a vertical one. Now, I did set up our background animation before with our simple side-scrolling animation, and I did extend it to a full 1.5 seconds, so I went to 45 frames. So that's a quick setup that you can do ahead and go ahead and set that one up. But what I want to do is to go ahead and add additional layers that are going to allow me to show this vertical effect. So I'm just going to go ahead and rename this layer to bird, because what I'm going to do is on this new layer, I'm going to go ahead and import to my stage this bird's image here. Now, of course, we have here 3 different birds here. And so actually what I want to do with these is actually break these apart so that they become 3 different images that I can then manipulate. So I'm going to use my lasso tool here, and I'm going to make sure I lock my background layer so I don't accidentally use that. So using my lasso tool, let's go ahead and just start by lassoing out this first bird. And you notice nothing happened. That's because I didn't hit the break apart command. So we got to make sure we break those apart first. And so I'm going to grab the first bird. And now that he is selected, I can just simply cut him. And I can then make a new layer, right click and paste in place. And so now he's isolated to his own layer. So I'm going to call him bird 2. And I'm going to go back to that original layer. And I'm going to grab this bottom bird here. And now that he's isolated, same process. I'm going to cut him, make a new layer. Let's call it bird 3. And I am just going to right click on here. Make sure I'm in bird 3 layer. And go ahead and hit paste in place. So now that we have all 3 of these objects kind of pulled apart into their own zones, we can now manipulate these as individual objects. Now, of course, we will have to convert these back into symbols, but that's not a big deal. So let's start first with our first bird. Of course, we have this giant object here. Now we have all this white space. I could, of course, take my lasso tool and choose to eliminate some of that white space by simply selecting that zone and then pressing the delete key. But notice it grabbed bird 3. I don't want that. I wanted that to only be bird 2. So if that happens, you can always lock those opposing layers so that way you don't accidentally select them. And now you can delete out that white space there. All right, going back to my selection here, let's first manipulate bird number 1. And I'm going to use my transformation tool here, my free transform tool. And I'm just going to bring that bird down in size because I want it so that these birds are far away and that they're going to zoom in closer. So I'm going to have this one come in from the upper corner. And then I'm going to maybe choose bird number 3 here. I'm going to unlock him and bird 2. But I'm going to grab bird 3. And I'm going to shrink him down in size, holding that shift key so it stays proportional. And I'm going to have him be actually pretty far away here. And I'm going to have him start in the middle of this image. And I'm actually going to rotate it just slightly so he's coming straight down. And then lastly, let's go ahead and grab the last bird, bird 2. And I'm going to take him to the upper corner, again using the shift key to shrink him down in size. And it's okay if these aren't all the same because we're going to apply our motion tweens here to go ahead and make these grow. Now I could, of course, now take these birds and put them all in the same layer and have them grow proportionally, but maybe they're moving at different speeds. But if I wanted to grab all 3 of these, for example, and now treat these as one object, I could hold down that shift key like I just did, and I can grab all 3 objects, and then of course I could convert these into one symbol. And if I do that, of course it will give me the option of how I want to make that. And I can say, hey, I want this to be a movie clip. I can call these birds. And you will see it will treat it now as one symbol. And that can be a real quick, easy way for us to manipulate these. And of course you'll notice that the active layer is bird, so we can just create in here a tween, but you notice we don't have the motion tween option, and that's because again these are across multiple layers. So I'm just going to back this up here and undo this so I still have individual ones. And the reason we're going to do this individually today is just so I can have more control. Now you could, of course, if these were on the same layer, create that motion tween and you could group these together. But I'm just going to go ahead and assume that these are on individual layers. And all I need to do now is to take these and create a motion tween. It's going to, hey, make this a symbol. I'm just going to say OK. I'll do the same thing with the other 2 layers, create motion tween. And so now we have motion tweens on all these layers. So I'm just going to jump to the end here. And with a vertical effect, what I want this to do is I want this to grow outward. So these aren't necessarily moving down. I could have them move down. So I could, of course, have this bird move down. But more than anything, if you're doing a vertical effect, these birds should be simply just getting larger. So I'm just going to have them grow just a little bit here. And I'll do the same thing for this bird. I'll just stretch that down, make him just a little bit larger. Holding down the shift key to retain proportions. And go to the other bird, hold down that shift key, retain proportions. And so what will happen is it gives that effect of these growing in size. So it's how you can really kind of zoom in on something. So our side scrolling effect is this first parallax effect that we had here, which is what we covered last time. But if we want kind of more of a zooming in type animation, you can see that here with our birds. We're doing kind of more of a zoom in. And so that allows us to create two different types of animations through parallax effects. We have a side scroll, which of course is very easy to do, but then we of course can also zoom in on objects. And of course I could import my character, have them still walk across the landscape here as well. But this gives you another quick, easy way to have control of that. One other thing I want to mention real quick is if I wanted to, again, have different speeds. One thing I mentioned is that by having these individual rather than one large symbol is I have greater control. So maybe I do want to have this bird move. I can, for example, take this middle bird. I'm going to just bring him down just a few squares just so he's moving. One thing you'll notice is he will move rather slowly, but if I were to move him a much larger distance, you will see that he has a very quick flight path by comparison. So if you ever want to move something quickly, we of course just do it with a small movement. And of course, if we do a large path like that, you'll notice it goes a lot quicker. So that's going to wrap up what we need to know with parallax effects, but it does help give us a couple more key tools that we can use when creating our animations.